Dubai is a city built on ambition. A place where fortunes are made behind glass towers and hidden behind private gates. To millions, it represents success, wealth, and endless opportunity. But beneath the luxury and perfection, some secrets are too dangerous to remain buried. In 2023, one family's seemingly perfect life began to unravel after the birth of a child. What followed would become a shocking mystery involving betrayal, hidden relationships, and a desperate race against time. Among Dubai's elite was Sheikh Hamdan al-Rashid, a businessman worth hundreds of millions of dollars. His empire stretched across real estate, luxury resorts, and international investments. To the public, he appeared disciplined and respected. Few knew that behind the success was a man deeply protective of his reputation and family legacy. Everything he had built was meant to pass to the next generation. But fate had already begun preparing a different future. Thousands of miles from home, Isabella Reyes arrived in Dubai searching for opportunity. Raised in a modest coastal town in the Philippines, she dreamed of building a better future. Hardworking and ambitious, she quickly adapted to life in the city. But a chance encounter inside one of Dubai's most exclusive hotels would change everything. What seemed like the beginning of a fairy tale would eventually become the center of an international scandal. Their relationship surprised many people. One came from extraordinary wealth and influence. The other came from humble beginnings. Yet over time, the pair grew closer. Friends described a relationship that seemed genuine. Luxury vacations, exclusive events, and public appearances painted the picture of a perfect romance. But behind every photograph was a reality nobody could see, and hidden beneath the surface were secrets waiting for the right moment to emerge. In 2021, the couple married in a private ceremony attended by influential guests and family members. The wedding symbolized the merging of two completely different worlds. For outsiders, it looked like a dream come true. The media celebrated the story, and social circles admired the glamorous union. Yet some relatives quietly questioned the relationship. Years later, investigators would revisit those concerns and discover that the warning signs may have existed from the very beginning. Far from the luxury villas and glamorous parties, another man remained hidden in the background. His name was Daniel Navarro. A marine engineer whose life seemed completely unrelated to the powerful al-Rashid family. Yet investigators would later discover that Daniel's connection to Isabella stretched back years. At first, the relationship appeared harmless. But hidden messages, unexplained meetings, and suspicious travel records would soon reveal a very different story. As investigators reconstructed years of digital activity, a pattern slowly emerged. Encrypted conversations appeared across multiple platforms. Many messages had been deleted. Others had been hidden behind layers of security. Yet fragments survived. The surviving record suggested that Isabella and Daniel may never have completely lost contact. What began as isolated clues soon transformed into a troubling timeline, one that hinted at a secret relationship operating beneath the surface of an apparently perfect marriage. Months before the scandal erupted, unusual financial transactions quietly passed through a network of accounts. Individually, they seemed insignificant. Small transfers. Routine payments. Nothing that would immediately attract attention. But when investigators analyzed them together, a pattern became impossible to ignore. Money appeared to move through multiple intermediaries before reaching individuals connected to Daniel. The trail was faint, but it suggested that someone had been preparing for something long before the truth came to light. Then came the news everyone had been waiting for. Isabella announced she was pregnant. The family celebrated immediately. For Sheikh Hamdan, the announcement seemed to secure the future he had always imagined. Friends congratulated the couple. Advisors began discussing inheritance plans. The atmosphere changed almost overnight. Yet while celebrations filled the mansion, a secret already existed beneath the excitement. A secret capable of destroying everything the family believed to be true. On September 18, 2023, a healthy baby boy entered the world. Family members celebrated the birth as a moment of joy and new beginnings. For 48 hours, life appeared perfect. But hidden inside routine medical procedures was information that would soon change everything. A standard genetic review raised unexpected questions. Additional tests followed. Then more tests. Within days, a discovery emerged that would send shockwaves through one of Dubai's most powerful families and begin a desperate 72-hour countdown. The laboratory technicians initially believed an error had occurred. Genetic inconsistencies occasionally appeared during testing, and mistakes were not impossible. Yet when additional samples were examined, the results remained unchanged. A third review produced the same conclusion. The evidence suggested that the newborn child was not biologically related to Sheikh Hamdan. The information remained confidential for a short period, but in cases involving powerful families, secrets rarely stay hidden for long. Somewhere within the hospital system, word began to spread. Investigators would later believe that Isabella somehow learned the truth before any formal confrontation occurred. The moment she realized exposure was approaching, a series of decisions were set into motion. Those decisions would transform a family crisis into an international manhunt. Inside the sprawling Al Rashid estate, nobody yet understood how quickly events were about to spiral out of control. To outsiders, the family was still celebrating the arrival of a new heir. Behind closed doors, however, uncertainty was spreading. Investigators later discovered unusual phone activity, increased use of encrypted applications, and a sudden burst of communication involving people connected to Isabella's past. The timing was impossible to ignore. Every digital footprint suggested urgency. Every movement suggested preparation. Whatever plans existed before the birth were suddenly accelerating. And with every passing hour, the opportunity to escape was slowly disappearing. The clock had started, even if most people involved did not yet realize it. As forensic analysts reconstructed the timeline, one event stood out above all others. A series of communications connected Isabella and Daniel during the crucial hours after the DNA concerns emerged. Many records had been deleted, while others were hidden behind encrypted systems. Yet enough information survived to reveal a pattern. Investigators believed these conversations were not casual. They appeared focused, deliberate, and urgent. Whatever was being discussed carried enormous consequences. The possibility that the secret relationship had continued for years was no longer speculation. With every recovered message, authorities moved closer to understanding how deeply the deception extended and how much planning had occurred before the crisis exploded into public view. While investigators searched for answers, financial analysts uncovered something even more disturbing. Millions of dollars appeared to be moving through a web of accounts spread across multiple countries. The transfers were carefully structured. Money passed through consulting firms, holding companies, and intermediaries before arriving at destinations linked to individuals under scrutiny. The complexity suggested experience and planning. Prosecutors would later argue that these movements were not random. Instead, they appeared designed to create a financial safety net in case the truth was ever exposed. If that theory was correct, then preparations for escape may have started long before anyone suspected a scandal existed. By the time family lawyers received confirmation of the DNA findings, events were already moving faster than anyone realized. Investigators would later estimate that Isabella had roughly 72 hours before the full truth became impossible to contain. 3 days. 72 hours to decide what came next. 72 hours before lawyers, investigators, and family members began demanding answers. The pressure was enormous. According to prosecutors, that pressure triggered a carefully prepared contingency plan. Travel arrangements appeared. Money started moving. Trusted associates became active. And somewhere beyond public view, preparations were underway for one of the most dramatic disappearances in the entire case. The countdown had begun, and every minute mattered. The second night after the DNA concerns emerged would later become one of the most heavily analyzed periods in the entire investigation. Security footage captured unusual vehicle movements across Dubai. A luxury SUV appeared at several locations before arriving near a private marina. Investigators believe these movements were part of a coordinated escape plan. Witnesses later described hurried activity near the docks, though nobody understood its significance at the time. Hidden beneath the darkness, critical decisions were being made. Every movement carried risk. Every minute increased the possibility of discovery. Yet the people involved continued forward, determined to stay ahead of the truth that was rapidly closing in around them. As dawn approached, investigators believe the operation entered its most critical phase. A vessel linked indirectly to individuals associated with the case departed under circumstances that would later raise serious questions. Maritime records contained inconsistencies. Tracking information appeared incomplete. Witness statements conflicted with official schedules. The deeper authorities looked, the stranger the situation became. Somewhere beyond the lights of Dubai, a route was unfolding that seemed designed to create confusion. If investigators were correct, the escape plan relied on distance, misdirection, and speed. The objective was simple: disappear before the family, lawyers, and authorities fully understood what had happened. By the following morning, concern had become alarm. Scheduled meetings were missed. Phone calls went unanswered. Security personnel could not verify Isabella's location. More troubling still, nobody could account for the child. What began as confusion quickly transformed into a full-scale crisis. Family advisors, legal teams, and private investigators launched urgent efforts to locate them. At first, some believed the disappearance was temporary. Others suspected a misunderstanding. But as hours passed without contact, a far darker possibility emerged. The woman, the child, and the answers everyone desperately needed had seemingly vanished into thin air, leaving behind only questions and fear. Authorities soon discovered that neither Isabella nor the child had officially left the country through normal channels. Border databases revealed nothing. Airport records showed no matching departures. The mystery deepened. Digital forensic teams began examining devices, financial records, and communication logs. Analysts worked around the clock, reconstructing timelines from fragments of information. Every recovered message, every surveillance image, and every transaction became part of a growing puzzle. Yet despite enormous resources, the fugitives remained invisible. It was as if they had anticipated every move investigators might make. The possibility of long-term planning suddenly became impossible to ignore, and the case expanded into an international search operation. Within weeks, investigators across several countries became involved. Financial intelligence units reviewed suspicious transactions. Maritime agencies analyzed vessel movements. Immigration authorities searched travel databases. Slowly, pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. Evidence suggested that the disappearance was not an impulsive reaction to the DNA results but part of a larger plan. Money had moved months earlier. Alternative routes had been researched. Associates connected to Daniel appeared in locations linked to the investigation. The search expanded from Dubai to multiple continents. What had started as a family scandal was now becoming a global manhunt, and the people responsible were beginning to make mistakes that would eventually expose everything. Months into the investigation, authorities finally uncovered what appeared to be the hidden backbone of the entire operation. Millions of dollars had quietly traveled through a maze of offshore companies, consulting firms, and temporary accounts spread across multiple countries. Each transaction seemed harmless when viewed alone. Together, they formed a sophisticated financial network designed to conceal ownership and movement of funds. Investigators spent countless hours rebuilding the trail. The deeper they looked, the more they suspected that the disappearance was not simply about avoiding a family scandal. It appeared connected to a carefully prepared safety net. If exposure ever occurred, resources would already be waiting. The financial evidence transformed the case from a personal betrayal into a potential conspiracy involving planning, deception, and international coordination. For the first time, authorities believed they were seeing the full scale of what had been hidden beneath years of secrecy. No matter how carefully a plan is constructed, mistakes eventually appear. In this case, the breakthrough came from several small errors that seemed insignificant at first. A banking transaction occurred at the wrong time. A communication record remained active longer than expected. Surveillance footage captured movements that should have gone unnoticed. Individually, none of these clues solved the mystery. Together, they revealed a pattern. Analysts compared thousands of records and gradually narrowed their search to a specific region. The fugitives had spent months staying ahead of investigators, but the pressure of living in secrecy was beginning to show. Every day increased the risk of exposure. Every decision created another opportunity for authorities to follow. After months of uncertainty, investigators finally believed they knew where to look. In early 2024, months after the disappearance, authorities launched a coordinated operation involving multiple agencies. Surveillance teams had spent weeks confirming locations and tracking movements. The objective was clear: prevent another escape and secure critical evidence before it could disappear. As dawn approached, officers moved into position. Properties connected to the investigation were monitored simultaneously. Search warrants were executed. Electronic devices were seized. Documents were collected. According to investigators, the operation unfolded quickly and without warning. The months-long pursuit had finally reached its conclusion. The people who had spent so long avoiding detection were suddenly face to face with the consequences of every decision made since the DNA results first appeared. The legal battle that followed became one of the most closely watched aspects of the case. Prosecutors presented financial records, communication logs, forensic reports, and testimony gathered during months of investigation. Experts explained DNA findings, digital evidence, and international money movements. Defense teams challenged conclusions and disputed interpretations. Yet the central facts remained impossible to ignore. The birth of a child had exposed years of hidden relationships and unanswered questions. What once appeared to be a fairy tale marriage now stood under the harsh light of public scrutiny. The courtroom became the final stage where secrets that had survived for years were examined piece by piece, revealing a story far more complicated than anyone had imagined. In the end, the case was never truly about wealth, luxury, or power. It was about trust. A trust that took years to build and only moments to destroy. What began as a romance surrounded by privilege eventually became a cautionary tale of deception, hidden choices, and consequences that could not be escaped forever. Investigators concluded that secrets can remain buried for years, but they rarely disappear completely. Every financial trail leaves traces. Every hidden relationship creates risks. Every lie demands another lie to protect it. The child who entered the world in September 2023 unknowingly revealed a truth powerful enough to expose everything that had been concealed behind a perfect public image. The irony was striking. The one secret everyone worked hardest to hide became the very thing that brought the entire story into the light. And as Dubai's skyline continued to shine above the city, one lesson remained clear. Fortunes can be rebuilt, reputations can recover, but once trust is lost, it is often the most expensive thing in the world to replace.